Okay, so this is going to be the last part of my video. It's going to be very rambly, and I'm going to cover a lot of shit. First, we're going to talk about the crouching heavy kick reset and where you should do it and why. So the crouching heavy kick reset is that one, and the only places you should be doing this is with your back to the corner, on the left 33% of the screen, or mid-screen. And the reason for this is because if you do the other resets when you're mid-screen, they will 100% get your opponent to the corner. If you do the reset off of crouching heavy kick, if you want to actually mix your opponent up by doing a truly ambiguous dive kick, you don't know which direction your opponent's going to be going in. So while it's possible to get your opponent back to the corner if you cross them up, which is better in the situation when you're in this part of the stage, you can still maintain the same exact combo no matter what. Now, when you're adapting this situation to, or when you're adapting to this situation, you're basically going the high-low situation, or you're doing low-high, or you're doing low-low, or you're just going for, you know, the command grab stuff. Now, if your goal is the command grab, then doing this reset at any point on the screen doesn't matter. If that's your goal, to get the command grab and get your, you know, free 45-50% meter, then go for it. But if your goal is to also get damage and you're, you know, attempting to go back into Daipon loop, then this particular part of the screen is important. Now, you can get KO Ender off of that same situation, but if you're not in the corner like this, the forward fierce into the dash punch is not going to connect. Oops. So as you can see here, the dash punch doesn't connect in the longest stage of the game. It may connect in the shortest stages in the game, but I haven't 100% checked that. And there's a reason why we're using Ken's stage to do this stuff, and that's because it's the longest stage in the game. And anything that will work on Ken's stage will work on every other stage. So when talking about the crouching heavy kick reset, if you do it too close to the opposing corner, well, yes, you can cross your opponent up. It doesn't really make sense to do so, right? Because if you're already this close to the corner, if you're insisting on resetting, there are other ways to do it that are more efficient, and you get just as much meter and more damage. So going for the crouching heavy kick reset when your opponent is already basically cornered after they get swept doesn't make sense. Right? Because they're already cornered at that point when I'm at the actual halfway mark. Now, I can still jump over him, but he's essentially cornered from that reset. Because crouching heavy kick is a guaranteed knockdown, and it pushes them back relatively far off of the far-standing heavy punch. Now, it puts them at the end of the stun bar, basically. If you're at this side of the screen when you start, you'll end up basically at round start, or slightly further away. And that's also why when you're doing this in the corner, it doesn't make any sense. Right? Because why would you do that when you can do the other basic resets? You know, anything that allows you to get your proper timing on your whatchamacallit, on your corner resets. Now, it's important to note that this reset gives you a decent amount of meter to work with. So if your goal is to have the most meter to work with off of this, and you want to go with the left-right mix-up, as opposed to the when your opponent needs to parry mix-up, then this might be for you. But again, situationally, it's, in my opinion, not the best choice if you insist on resetting when your opponent's so close to the corner. Because if you were to do any of the other two resets off of the middle screen situation, so let's say round start, they're already cornered, right? Same thing off of the universal overhead reset. So if you're mid-screen and you want to do a reset, doing the crouching heavy kick one is 100% viable, but it's usually better when your back is to the corner and your opponent is pressuring you in the left or right third of the screen, because you can get the most out of it. Now, let's talk about the different, because you're mid-screen, right? If you're mid-screen and you want to do Daipon loop, that's the reset you should be doing. Because if you were to do this reset, you have a lot less options as to what you can do in order to maximize your enders and your meter gain. So if you want to get the most damage out of your combo, doing Daipon loop, you know, at least 3 or 4 times. You can't do it 3. It has to be 4 or more from round start situation. So keep that in mind. The further away that you are, the more Daipons that you need in order to get that same situation. So that was 7. And you can do it off of 8, but it's not worth it. I'd honestly say doing it off of anything more than 5 is a waste, because you've already basically gotten your opponent to the corner. And then you can just get your ender and go for whatever. On the flip side, though, that's a double-edged sword, because if you go for the reset, you do have enough time to get 2 hits in before your opponent lands, and then you can get a lot more meter, like 50% for almost nothing. As you can see off the standing medium kick forward fierce dash punch ender. Like, that's a joke ender. It's not the greatest ender in the world, but it is what it is. So when considering how your choices affect your spacing for your opponent, you don't have to do the crouching heavy kick reset at this point, right? You can also do the other resets, but if you're not comfortable with Daipon loop, you need to do multiple shoulders. So the normal reset will end up with this spacing. Now, Ken's in front of his Ken barrier, right? And this thing is what basically shows you that it's the left third of the screen, right? From the Ken barrier to this door is the middle part of the screen, and from this door to the edge of the screen are this pillar right here. The 2 pillars basically show you the other thirds of the screen, essentially. So if your opponent or you are at either pillar, you know there's only like 33% of the screen left, and that's how you can make decisions on what moves to do while you're freestyling in your resets. So what happens when you add another shoulder to this? Well, let's look at the 2 shoulder and then the 3 shoulder. Now Ken is on that right third of the screen where he's easily cornerable. Like, easily cornerable. Oops. So when your opponent is that close to the corner, it's extremely easy to corner him. You can manage to get your forward medium kicks relatively easily against every character where you don't need Kara's. So if you're to do 3 shoulders instead, it's essentially the same combo, damage-wise and meter-wise. It just depends on how you want to manipulate your opponent's positioning. Doing 3 from mid-screen doesn't make any sense. So now let's look at how it affects Universal Overhead. So at this point, Ken's back foot is already in the last third of the screen. So he's probably 60% of the screen away from, not 60, 45% of the screen away from the corner, or 40%. If you add in a second shoulder, he is essentially cornered, right? So if you get your timing right, obviously the ender's pretty easy there. But doing 2 shoulders off of the Universal Overhead reset really eats a lot of meter as well. So you have to be conscious of your decisions on how much time you end up with when you're doing these things. Because if you do 3, you really only have time for 2 hits, right? You only have time to get the first hit on your opponent and then go into your ender. So it's a risk that you shouldn't want to take because it limits the amount of actual opportunity you have to mix up your opponent. And also, when the more of these that you add, the worse that Zempo Tension is as an option afterward. So your opponent can basically forget that you're going to do it. Because if you do a Zempo Tension just, normally, then you're only going to get about 20% meter off of it. And you're not going to get that much damage. And because you're getting Zempo Tension outside of Ganejin, you don't get, up kicks into whatever. But if you do 2, you still get the 55% meter variant of it. So it's important to note that if you are playing against Yun, or if you're playing as Yun, doing multiple shoulders or multiple dash punches in your combo is going to make, after your reset, doing a high-low mix-up or a command throw mix-up basically null and void. It's not really worth it. But if you were to do 1 shoulder, you have perfect situation to go like high, low, low into, shoulder or whatever you want to do. Or, crouching medium kick, light kick into 2 Daipons. If you were to attempt to do just, medium light into it, it's not going to work. And that's also other things that you need to note, is that based on Universal Overhead and based on jump medium kick, if you were to do crouching medium kick into forward Fierce Punch, because you have to walk forward to under the middle of the screen, right? Because at this portion of the screen, you get that. You get anything into Fierce Dash Punch. So because you're closer to them, and they get closer to the corner, it's a lot easier to manage to get an ender off of that, off of, you know, one shoulder than it is, you know, two. And you can get KO ender off of that, you can get whatever you want. As long as you carry your standing medium kick, unlike my choice there. So, the same thing can be said off of the jumping medium kick reset. Is the more hits that you add that allow you to go forward and get under this portion of the screen makes it a lot easier to get that reset. And again, that works completely full screen, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts if your opponent is going to become cornered at that point off of the forward fierce into dash punch. Now, thinking about spacing, well, what happens, you know, if I'm a third of the way through the screen? Or, you know, how does that affect things? Well, if you start your combos at this pillar, so 33% of the way through the stage, or 60% of the way through, or 70% of the way through the actual stage itself, like if you use the life bars as the stage, where if you walk forward, your opponent is going to pull the stage with them, right? So where your opponent's back shoulder is under their name, like the first letter of their name, Ken or whatever. That's important because just like the command throw resets, knowing that this is where you start, you can do the forward fierce dash punch just to get them to the corner. So you have plenty of opportunities to mix up at different timings. So also the other thing I touched on in the universal overhead video is that you can do a double reset, right? Whether it's off of standing medium punch into it, which is a lot harder because you have less buttons that can hit your opponent after it. And your opponent is likely going to fall onto the ground. But you can time it to the point where they're still in the air, obviously. But in these situations, you need to be closer to the corner. And it's mostly best to do it off of two situations. Either close standing medium kick, or off of far standing medium kick. So if you do it off of far standing medium kick, it's relatively simple. Oops. So the timing on when you do standing medium punch or standing fierce or whatever is a little bit different than you would off of this setup. Oops. And you also have to delay the forward medium kick if you want to do forward medium kick. But if you're doing a double reset off of the shoulder, then you shouldn't be doing that as a option anyway. Just doing a basic ender is going to get you like 50% meter. So if you go for a double reset, keep it simple, unless you are 100% sure that you want to go for like KO ender. So you would basically have to hit them with either standing medium kick or standing medium punch. In order to get it. It's probably easier off of standing medium kick than it is standing medium punch. Yep, much easier. And that's like 80% meter. So, you know, double resets are good, or they can be good. Now let's talk about differences in the corner, and also differences mid-screen off of certain situations. So if you decide that you don't want to do this, and you want to make your opponent guess when you're going to be doing your reset, because you have a couple different options. You have that one, which is shoulder, dash punch, walk back, and then, or delay, standing medium kick. I apologize for my mistakes in the execution right now. You can either do a neutral jump or a neutral medium kick and catch them. As you can see there, you still get about 55% meter. Or you can do super delayed, like far medium kick, but you have to walk back for it. You can also do that as a reset. Far stand heavy punch into jumping medium kick, but you have much less timing to get your reset on your opponent. So if you continue with, you know, all the different timings and different styles of when you can do your jumping medium kick reset, that'll really screw with how they're going to adapt to it. So not only can you do it off of multiple shoulders, or you can do it off of shoulder into dash punch. But you can do it off of, you know, shoulder dash punch into a plethora of things. So you can reset them to the opposite side, and then jump and hit them. And then continue to the corner. There's a lot of different options that you have. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can reset your opponent to the other side of you. Right? And they're mostly going to land before you in some of those cases. Unless you do like light punch, dash punch or something. Now, those situations are not always the best because your meter gain is less than 45%. So unless you're doing it as a reposition where it's like, oh shit, I really need my opponent in the corner, it's probably not the best choice. So the other thing is, you know, how does Daipon Loop affect these resets from here? Well, depending on how many Daipons you do, 3 Daipons puts him off of jump medium kick at the same positioning that universal overhead would, and it also gives you the exact same meter that you would have if you were to do the normal reset for universal overhead. So he becomes a little bit further forward, and it's the same meter to work with. So if you're consistent with Daipon Loop, going for jumping medium kick resets off of Daipon Loop is probably going to be more beneficial than just doing the, you know, shoulder into this into universal overhead. Now, another thing that you need to keep in mind is that you can do up to 6 and still get a reset and have it be successful. But it has to be off jumping medium kick, because otherwise you're going to have too little amount of time. Now, the sweet spot is between, for full screen stuff like that, between 4 and 5. From mid screen, it's between 3 and 5. So starting from here, you can end up doing forward fierce at that point, and getting that reset instead. And that's probably going to be more beneficial at that spacing, because that's the reset that Sho and Ushi use most often. And it's important to note that this does work from 100% mid-screen. So it's 5 Daipons into forward fierce. 30% of the way from the screen is up, like 3 of them is the guaranteed minimum that you're going to need. And on top of that, like, it also does the most damage for your resets. So incorporating Daipon loop in your resets is pretty important. Because it also forces your opponent to make decisions in certain situations as to like how they're going to get out of, or how they're going to be forced to deal with a reset or taking all the damage. Now, the reason why doing Daipon loop against standing opponents into resets is important is because it scales the ender of your combo a lot. So if you were to just do like 11 Daipons on a standing Ken for whatever reason, then you're just going to end up scaling your combo so much that the ender damage and the ender meter is not going to really be there. So you're better off taking the guaranteed damage of 5 Daipons, which is a lot. So as you can see there, 5 Daipons is about 25% of his life. So if you get 5 of them into a reset, you've taken about 33 to 40% of his life, and he's forced to make a decision that's going to make him lose between 10 and 20% more life if he gets hit, and also generate you 45 to 75% of your meter. So it's a win-win. And off of Daipon loop, you can still go for Zempo tension resets. But 5 is the maximum that you can do to make Zempo worth it. Because if you do 6, it's a little bit harder. Looks like 6 is the maximum, that's not 5. So 6 is the maximum for the 50% reset. So if you go for that, you get 50% meter. Let's take a look at the damage again. Oops. So it's past the K. So that's about 65%. So 65% damage and 70 or 55% meter for a reset, where they sort of have to make a decision. Now the same thing can be said as when you're doing this. You get significantly less damage and meter, as you can see there. You lose about 10% damage and you lose easily 30% meter. But you're guaranteed to get the corner and you're guaranteed to get the knockdown. So it's really heavily dependent on your risk-reward style as a player, and if you decide that you need to go full screen, right? Because getting resets off of multiple hits mid-screen is, or multiple Daipons mid-screen is going to yield a lot more damage and a lot more meter. So this is something that Nika KO harps on me about all the time, is that, you know, I'll start with like 5 Daipons and then go for a combo. And as you can see here, if you go for 5 Daipons, god damn it. And then you do a basic ender, I get 15% meter. right? Now, that exact same situation, if I were to do a regular combo, I get more damage and about the same meter without doing a proper ender. So, if you do a real full combo, or like a real combo, like you connect 1, 2, 3, you get a lot more damage than you would, about equal to the damage of the reset, about 65%, and you get about equal to the Daipon loop meter-wise. And that's with a shitty ender. So like, you can find ways into KO ender and stuff and make this like 35% meter, but it's not really worth it. Now, it's important to note that there's a bunch of different ways that you can actually reset your opponent. So like, close steady medium kick, jump medium kick, and you still get decent meter. So like, if you don't want to do it off of universal overhead, right, then you can do it off of a standing medium kick or far medium kick into just whatever you want to do. You get a lot more meter than you would off of, you know, similar situations without a reset. So when you're considering your options in the corner, you have a lot of different choices. You have palm into it, right? You have forward fierce and then jump into it. You have close standing medium kick. Kara standing medium kick if you want to really get technical. As you can see, all of these yield different percentages damage-wise and meter-wise, and it's impossible to make a list of, well, it's not impossible, I'm just too fucking lazy, to make a list of all the things that are most optimal to do. And also, if you make a list of most optimal things to do, it's going to allow the other players to read a list of what they should be looking out for in certain situations. So if you were to tell them, okay, well, going for, you know, palm into super jump or jump medium kick at this range or at this situation is going to yield this much meter or whatever. Well, knowing that you can do the exact same situation into a palm, into whatever. Why am I fucking this up? Going into a command throw, you know, you get the same sort of option as you would off of any other reset. So knowing that you are always going to have at least 3 options, 4 options, depending on the height at which you do your reset, and that's the next thing I want to talk about, is that when you're doing the universal overhead reset, you can actually manipulate your opponent's height based on when and how you jump, and also you can do it based on when you do the universal overhead. So if you were to do the jump medium kick one as well, if you're in the corner, you can do just normal jump medium kick. You don't need a super jump. And it'll manipulate, or not manipulate, but it will give you a different height than you would get off of a super jump. So you have slightly less time to make a decision on what to do to your opponent, and they have really only 2 timings instead of 3 when you can hit them. So it's a little bit less guesswork on your opponent's part for the parry timing, but they also have to consider, you know, the fact that you're letting them drop a little bit lower, meaning that you can either be hoping to go for a high-low reset, or you're hoping to go into like high-low throw, like literally high into a low into a command throw, or a low into a command throw, or just like Zempo tension stuff off of waiting for them to try and DP or something. So that's important. So when you're doing the, if you just walk forward 1 step and then you do it, you get the most height, right? But you can do it by walking 2 steps, and you can make them a lot lower. So when you're doing it like that, it's important to know that coupling your choices, the lower they are, the better it is for you. Right? Because if you're limiting the amount of time or the amount of options for timings that they have for parries, then you are eliminating some of your own options. So the longer you wait to do your universal overhead, the harder it is to maintain like what choice you actually want to go for. So another option is like doing this super deep, guaranteeing they get the parry on the first hit, right? And then going low. And then when they land from the parry, you'll be right in their face for command throw. So being able to manipulate how they fall and the timings can help you out a lot as far as actually going for high-low mix-ups, actually going for command throw mix-ups, and actually, you know, they don't know what you're going to do after that because you have a little bit less options. Because as you can see there, if I tried the forward medium kick, which would have worked if I do the higher height, they're already landed, basically. Right? So the lower you hit them, the faster it is that they land, the less hits that they need to parry before they're on the ground. And then they can make a decision to try and like parry super or, you know, do whatever they're going to do, depending on their character, obviously. So that's something that's important to note. Also, another thing that's important to note is when you do heavy punch dash punch, you don't actually need to walk forward in the corner in order to get the universal overhead to be at the max distance. So that's gone over pretty much all the different spacing stuff. Now there's obviously still reasons to go for the crouching heavy kick reset. Variety is important when you're doing your resets, because if you're doing the same reset over and over and over again, the only thing they have to worry about is the timing of when you're doing your moves, if you're coupling them, and if you're doing or if you're letting them fall. If you're doing different setups, they have to worry about that, but they also have to worry about reading the setup. So if you're just so used to doing Daipon loop, you know, as your starter, they're going to be thinking, okay, where's this going? Am I going to get shouldered into a reset? And am I going to get shouldered into dash punch and to make sure that I'm in the corner? Am I going to get shoulder into dash punch? Okay, well, they made sure I'm in the corner. Up, reset. Shit. So the same thing can be said with jumping medium kick. You know, oh, well, they did the thing. I'm already in the corner. They've done their dash punch. They didn't do the reset. They did the standing medium kick. Okay, they're just going to do palm into up kicks into whatever. Nope. Okay, they did the reset with jump medium kick. Okay, now I got to guess. So, variety as to when and how you do your resets matters a lot. So you can do the same thing off of close stand medium or fierce punch. And that's probably easier to showcase off of jumping medium kick. So you can get jump medium kick resets off of pretty much anything. Some of them they're going to land sooner than others, obviously, so you'll have different timings on, you know, when they're going to be falling and all that stuff. And also the other thing is, so as you can see there, if you do it immediately, they're hit really high, but you can do the jumping medium kick late as well to make them drop a little bit more, and that variation in when you're doing your jumping medium kick as well throws off their timing at which they're going to be parrying. So, you know, the special resets are basically any situation that will allow you to change things up. The differences between what buttons you press during your Zempo tension, whether it's jumping light kick or jumping medium punch. Right? Jumping medium punch, or if it's jumping heavy kick, or if it's jumping medium kick, or you know, whatever it is that you're doing. Because that is also the same situation, doing Zempo tension into a reset. But as you can see here, it's a little bit harder, and you will still scale your meter. Because a standing medium kick's giving you like 10%. So that's a bad choice. So you can still get decent meter off of the resets as well, depending on what reset you do, how you do it. You know, you can still maintain your, you can do a double Zempo tension if you really wanted to. But you would have to do it, like, immediately. And it's probably not going to catch a whole lot of people off guard, but it's still a viable option. So, some characters, when you do the universal overhead mix-up, give you, or reset, give you a, it's easier to show you. Off the top of my head, Alex is the only one that I know for a fact does it. I haven't put the time in to actually research what other characters this happens with, but resetting Alex in general is probably not the greatest idea. But if you insist on doing it, doing the jumping medium kick reset is probably the best, and I'll show you why. So, when you do the reset, as you can see there, I walked forward a step immediately after the dash punch, and I did the universal overhead in the opposite direction, and he just fell. So what you actually have to do is delay your dash punch. Now, when you do this, it becomes a little bit harder to hit your opponent. because certain moves become non-viable. Now, certain moves also become more viable in certain situations. So if you do an immediate one, and then you take a step back, and then do the universal overhead, you get different timings on your universal overhead, different heights, and all that shit too. So it's a little bit more complicated on this character. But one of the easiest things to showcase this is if you were to do this setup into medium punch dash punch into immediate universal overhead, it doesn't work with medium punch dash punch. But if you do heavy punch dash punch, it works 100%. But let's say you're doing medium punch dash punch and you walk forward a step. That should work. If you do the immediate dash punch. But it doesn't always. The only way to make sure that the medium punch dash punch works is to delay it. So you have to delay your dash punch before you do the overhead against most characters. And it also will alter the height at which they're hit. So as you can see, there are some situations where the close standing medium kick hits Alex, and then there's other situations where I'll get far standing medium kick and it'll just whiff right through him. So it's very inconsistent against him. There are certain buttons that are guaranteed to work a little bit better. So if I do the immediate overhead on Alex, or I do the delay, sorry. Now, I have to walk forward a step to do far standing medium punch. Because if I don't take the step forward, the standing medium punch just whiffs right through him. As you can see there. I did a dash punch just to show that he lands. But, yeah, so if you're doing the reset against Alex, it's best to do, this. And, you know, doing it off a Daipon loop is 100% viable as well. You know, any reset you want. So, make sure that when you start your Daipon loop against Alex, it's off of crouching medium kick against standing Alex. It's most consistent that way. And yeah, you know, you have the other resets that I've showcased before where it's off of Zempo tension and standing medium kick. But that exact same situation works in the corner. Off of close standing medium kick, which usually happens off of like a dash punch situation. So it's not that special, but you know, the other situations that I talked about where you can do it off of other normals without super jump, with super jump, whatever you want to do in the corner is important as well. Same thing with mid-screen stuff. You can literally do medium punch shoulder, walk forward medium kick. Sorry, walk forward carrot medium kick. And you can get a side swap mix up off of this. Against certain characters. So Alex, you can't side swap. Let's take a look at Chun-Li just to make sure that you actually can side swap and I'm not just talking out of my ass, which may be the case. looks like I'm just talking out my ass. Yep, just talking out my ass. But, I wonder if I can go under her. Yes, I can. So, you can go under her with, forward fierce. Not that that really matters. But, it should mean that you can get under her with other things as well. Like, maybe shoulder? Yep. I don't know if she can react to that in time. So I wonder if you can do something else as well. So you can't go under her with Kara crouching medium kick. And Kara forward medium kick doesn't go under her either. So the only way to go under her is to shoulder. I assume dash punch will go under her as well. So that's shoulder. Yep, dash punch does as well. But I'm assuming that this is correct. Okay, that doesn't work. Anyway, so you can get under her with whiffing specials, which is kind of cool. But you can also, you should be able to do your jumping target combo off of that. But you can't go under her after that either, which is weird because you can do it off of normal situations. So I wonder if it's because you're doing it with normal jump, or if it's because you can't super jump forward after that. That's cool too, is that you can reset off of Kara standing medium fierce punch. So there are actually some other cool choices that you have. And in certain situations, you know, you can go under your opponent. Oops. So you can do that against her. It's just pain in the ass. Why am I getting standing heavy kick? So that reset 100% works, And the reason I know this is because I have a video of fucking Yakun doing it. So... oh, fuck. I'm doing it wrong, that's why. There we go. And then you get mix-up. So, sorry, it's not off of 2 standing medium kicks, it's off of 1. So in situations where, you know, you end up doing Kara standing medium kick into palm or something, you might be able to do it. But it seems like that's not the case. So it seems like she has to be super low when the palm hits. Otherwise it doesn't work. So that's not quite what I expected. So you can still do resets off of, you know, jumping medium kick as well. So yeah, Chun-Li has a lot of stupid resets, mostly off of Zenbo Tension into standing medium kick. If you were to do jump forward into medium punch instead of medium kick, you should be able to go the opposite direction. Yep. So in those situations, you could be super fancy. And go for jumping medium punch. And that should work. But I'm mistiming, obviously. Unless I'm just too far away. Which doesn't seem to make sense to me. But that's okay. Try it one more time. There we go. So, making sure that you get resets into proper enders and shit is like super important as well. So making sure that you get good enders on Chun-Li and Makoto and Urien and stuff like that is like the most important thing. But keep in mind that when you're doing these resets, they do at least 50% of the screen. Most of the time they do 60 to 70%. And if you add in that extra shoulder or the multiple daipons, like it goes the entire way. So if you're mid-screen and you do it, you know, you can manipulate things in different ways. If you're mid-screen and you just want to go for a fast reset, you still have the option to do, wow, I'm bad. Why am I not getting my sweep? So you have, you know, plenty of options. There's always the other daipon loop reset. Which is dash up, throw. There's also dash up low. So your opponent has to guess. And the funniest part is you can actually space it so that your throw lands outside of some character's throw range. I forget how to do it, but it is possible. It's not reliable, but it's something that you can do. You can also, you know, intentionally drop your Daipon loops and go for like dash up whatever you want to do, or like super jump. Because if you intentionally drop your Daipon loop, right, you do dump forward medium kick into whatever, especially in the corner. You know, it's a lot of damage, but it's something that you have to make sure that you also mix in Sebo tension and stuff like that. It's not, you know, consistent, but it is what it is. The other thing that you should think about is intentionally doing the same timing on your resets so that your opponent knows when to parry but doesn't know how many times to parry. So if you're doing the same reset no matter what, so let's say you're doing okay, so let's do crouch medium kick forward dash punch into universal overhead, right? Oh, I did it too slow. I didn't do dash punch or overhead. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Okay, so if you're doing the same timing, right? Let's say you're doing immediate, or you're doing walk one step forward into standing medium punch, right? They have to guess between that, which is 2 slow timings. They also have to guess between, which is slow, fast, and that's slow, fast, right? And then you have slow, fast, slow. And then you also have so you have a bunch of different options, like intentionally whiffing lows so that you can command throw, or making sure that your other moves go a little bit faster. So there's a lot of variation that you can do. This is a little bit of recoverage, obviously, but this stuff is really important. So get it ingrained in your head. So in the video or the written guide, I will do optimal damage bullshit off of certain resets, assuming the first hit connects. I'm not going to do it off of second hit, third hit, you know, and all that jazz. I'm not going to do it for every sort of amount of Daipon loop. I'll probably do it off of 3 Daipons and then the baby combo, which, you know, was the 1 stand heavy punch. This one. That one. Obviously, that's not the best damage that you can get, but yeah. I think that pretty much wraps it up. There's other situations where, like, universal overhead doesn't connect on certain characters. Understand, it's like the same situation with Daipon loop that drops on like Makoto and shit like that when they're crouching. You just kind of have to memorize it. understanding how far away you are if you want to be going for forward fierce for carry is important, as well as knowing how to do forward fierce and continue walking into like stand fierce to get the proper double shoulder enders or something. Because you don't always want to be going for, you know, dash punch into standing medium kick, forward fierce, you know, dash punch. Like that's low damage, low meter ender. I mean, I do it a lot myself, which is hypocritical. But I never checked if you can do the standing heavy kick. Oh, you can't. That probably makes sense. But yeah, you can do that on her. Which is so like if you do the Kara palms, right? You know what it does right to the stun bar? Oops. Let's not fuck this up. Why am I not getting my half circles? Or my Kurto circles? Am I not touching down? Come on. This is getting frustrating. I hit it the first time, and then I don't hit it again. So, the same combo, right? Doing standing heavy punches afterward. Does almost the exact same damage. And it's so much fucking easier. And against Chun-Li, like, you don't even have to do Kara. You can just do walk forward fucking standing heavy punch. As long as it's after the palm, though. So, if you get all three palms, right, it's relatively simple as long as you make forward to walk, or make sure to walk enough. And if you are having trouble with the walking like it was there, you can do the Kara standing heavy punch, which makes it so much easier. But I seem to be fucking up on the whatevers. So I mean, you can do the exact same thing here. So if your opponent is seeing you do a normal combo, right? And this is why I'm considering going with this combo against Shotos and stuff as well. Is because you can just go right off of Standing Fierce into a reset. And actually, I will make another video on that. So this is going to be the end of that, and I'm going to make another video on that